Welcome to the virtual lunch. Today is Friday, September 25th, and this is virtual lunch number 140. Dr. Larry Richard, founder of LawyerBrain.
I started in a family of lawyers going back 3 generations. In our extended family, 14 of us were lawyers. So I assumed I would practice law. There was nothing else to think of. I went to college and took pre-law, political science, economics, all that stuff. Went to law school, University of Pennsylvania. From day one, I knew I'd made a mistake. It was a tedious 3-year grind. Every day I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to go back to this class. But I stuck it out and I got a good job in government, kept trying one job after another, never more than about 18 months. And after 10 years of banging my head against the proverbial what Ari's standing in front of, I decided this is the wrong career. I've got to do something that's more congruent with who I am. And after a lot of soul searching, it was pretty obvious that psychology was and always had been my first love. So I decided to go back and earn a PhD and to study lawyers as part of my degree program. In fact, my dissertation was a study of the Myers-Briggs preferences of a national sample of 3,000 plus lawyers across the US, from large firms, small firms, corporations, military, government, nonprofit, solos, judges. I got everybody in that study. And what I was shocked to find is that the kind of people that go into law are dramatically different from other people. We are outliers. We're atypical. We're not like the other kids. That just made me fascinated. And from that point on, for the last almost 30 years, I've been just gathering tons of personality data on lawyers. At this point, it's probably over 25,000 lawyers. The outlier traits that make us atypical equip us really well to practice law. But unfortunately, there are a lot of other roles that we have to play these days, including almost all of them are what I'd call relationship-based roles. And the qualities that make us good at practicing law make it much, much harder to be good at those relationship roles. So the better we are as a lawyer, the harder it is to be a leader, mentor, colleague, committee chair, rainmaker, fill in the blank. First of all, personality is a very stable construct. So within an individual, it tends to be very stable over their lifetime. Secondly, within the legal profession, one thing that has impressed me over all these years is that even though the profession has changed, the nature of what we do has changed, the roles have expanded, the kind of person that's needed in the legal profession is much more complicated today than it was 25 years ago. And yet, I am still seeing in 2020 the same basic profile come through as I did 20, 25 years ago, which is kind of shocking. The one difference is that millennials have a dramatically lower score in a trait called empathy than previous generations do. The way we learn empathy by and large is when we're kids, we learn it through play. And you build this set of unconscious mental predictions about how my behavior affects other people. Well, anyone born from roughly 1993 or 4 onward, they didn't do a lot of play interpersonally. They texted, and texting is notorious for not having any visual and not having any emotional transmission. So all you get is information. You don't get any of the feedback that a kid in a schoolyard might get. And so while there may be other factors, I think that's a very big explanation potentially for why the empathy has fallen off. The bright spot is that empathy is one of the few personality traits that you can actually increase just through a learning process. Most personality traits are much more genetic and much harder to change, but empathy, while it's still got some genetic contribution, is actually more learned than genetic. And that means that people can learn how to improve their empathy. Back in the 1980s, they identified 5 key behaviors and basically showed that leadership effectiveness is a direct function of doing these behaviors. It's not due to charisma, it's not due to personality, it's due to doing these behaviors. However, personality indirectly affects your success as a leader because it affects whether you're comfortable or uncomfortable doing these critical leadership behaviors. So let's take an example. Because leadership is based on uncertainty, leaders take risks, leaders try new things. Well, that means risk-taking is an essential behavior if you want to be effective as a leader. Lawyers are risk averse. And so taking risks, trying new things in a profession that's based on precedent, that's going against the tide. That doesn't mean that if you're a typical low-risk lawyer that you can't be a good leader. It just means you have to be willing to tolerate discomfort in order to be a good leader. Anything can be done, any role can be achieved if you are willing to tolerate discomfort. Mindset is the key. And so I predict a lot of discomfort for lawyers if they want to be effective leaders. I paid my way through graduate school doing career counseling for lawyers. And then I wrote a book about it called The New What Can You Do with a Law Degree? What I basically said in that book is, if you want to have a satisfying career, the secret is figure out who you are. What are your core qualities that don't tend to change? Values tend to be stable over time. Personality is stable over time. Needs are usually stable over time. So in the book, I talk about the components of a stable personality and then ways that you can figure out what are my needs, what are my values, what are my personality traits, et cetera. What are my skills and my strengths? And then you look at the career path and say, how much alignment is there between the qualities that make up who I am and the things that I'm doing? The more alignment there is, the happier I'm going to be. So law firms are under enormous pressure today to change their model, driven by client needs and driven by change and unpredictability. And now 6 months of COVID and people getting very used to the benefits of working virtually, a lot of individual lawyers, I predict, will be leaving big law because they've realized that they can work virtually and it's more satisfying. And a lot of clients are working virtually with lawyers right now and realizing, hey, I'm getting just as high quality legal services from somebody working from their home as I am somebody working from expensive real estate in a big city. And they may start to take advantage of virtual individual lawyers more than they did before. No, I do think that we're at an inflection point where so much is changing and so much is unpredictable. When you get to that kind of point psychologically, it's much easier for people's mindset to change, even people who are traditionally change averse. When you're change averse as a person and you're in an environment that's very stable, it's very easy to insist on, no, I want to do it the way I've always done it. But when you're in an environment where everything is unpredictable, it's very easy to get people to try something new because the human brain wants some stability. And if somebody offers trying this will be a way to stability, people are going to give it a shot. In Utah, for example, Utah did something quite extraordinary in allowing non-lawyers to be owners of a legal practice. And I just think it's a matter of not much time before there's going to be pressure on the larger jurisdictions to follow suit, or states like Utah are going to start seeing migrations of big law the way that Delaware became the corporate center years ago. Is that there are a couple of personality traits that make us sitting ducks for depression. There was a CDC study in 2012 that showed that lawyers have 3.6 times the level of depression compared to the general public. Number one on the hit parade is that we have a 90% average score on skepticism. The average for the public is 50. So lawyers are skeptical because the nature of legal work requires us to look for problems, look for what could go wrong to protect our client. But it comes with a side effect. We tend to be mistrusting. We don't build relationships readily. We tend to be more negative and pessimistic in our thinking. And those are all factors that increase the cognitive foundation for depression. Depression starts as a thought disorder. It starts as thinking negative thoughts that precipitate negative feelings. But we also atrophy the things that could offset that. We atrophy our capacity to find good. So good things pass by our radar screen every day and we don't notice them. Our mindset is incredibly powerful. And so if we train people early on about how to have a mindset that is more positive, not unrealistically positive, positive in a way that we don't ignore the positive and just look at the negative. And that mindset can be taught. Go to YouTube, type in Aaliyah Crum, placebo effect. It's an extraordinary 14 minutes, and I commend it to everybody.
Dr. Larry Richard, everybody.